Hey, it's Alan at Host Digital, and in this video, I'm going to show you how to add a funnel map to your e-commerce dashboard. So this can be a really, really valuable step to take if you're truly committed to growing your website conversion rates. Funnel map looks a little bit like this. If you've already accessed your conversion detox dashboard, it's the final page in that dashboard, but it's the page that also requires a little bit of customization because it's the most valuable page, if I'm honest, on the dashboard. What it shows you is a 10,000 foot view of where people are dropping off in the path to purchase on your website. The reason it requires a bit of customization is because every website's unique, and we actually need to tell the dashboard how to determine what is a category page, what is a product list page, what is a product detail page, and so on and so forth. We need to tell the dashboard, please only show me the relevant number for each specific step or page in the path to purchase. And that's what the purpose of this video is. Today, I'm going to show you how to do that, how to customize your funnel map so that this data is actually relevant for your specific use case. So the first thing you want to do, actually, two quick caveats. Having some experience with Google Analytics is a big plus for the purposes of this how-to or following along this how-to. And it helps if you're a little bit technically minded. So if the prospect of editing the technical setup of your dashboard just scares the pants off you, or you'd rather eat your own hat than log into Google Analytics, then definitely get in touch with me so we can discuss your specific situation. I think there's an orange button at the bottom of this page. We can get in touch and we'll have that chat. But with that said, if Google Analytics doesn't scare you, if you're willing to get your hands a bit dirty, then definitely follow along with this guide. I'm going to make this as straightforward as possible. So to follow along, you're going to need two things. You need access to your e-commerce dashboard, obviously, and you're going to need access to your Google Analytics, obviously. So without further ado, let's get cracking. So you've got your dashboard here. You want to hit the edit button. And now you can start making changes. So you can, for example, start moving things around on your dashboard. You can even relabel these steps based on what the step is called for your website. I highly recommend you start by interpreting and determining what is the primary path to purchase that you want to track. Now, that's not such an obvious question to answer because many websites, for example, don't have a category level page on their e-commerce setup. They only have, for example, product list pages. So this page might be something you remove. This step might be something you remove because it's not relevant to your setup. Or maybe you want to include the homepage as the first step in your path to purchase. So you might want to relabel this one, for example, homepage. I haven't done that here. And to be honest, with most e-commerce websites, users don't start on the homepage. They often land at the product list page level or they land at the product detail page level. So it makes sense to start your funnel at that level. However, if you want to start at the homepage level, that's absolutely cool. Go ahead and relabel or set up things how you want to. If you want to add an additional step, I'd recommend highlighting like this, copying and pasting, and then relabeling accordingly and moving things around until you've got a kind of layout that reflects reality, that essentially reflects the front end of your website. That's the first thing. So just draw things out, map things out, play around with this funnel map so that this flow works for you. Then let's get started with the data. So category page. What do we mean by category page? Well, a lot of websites, let's take French Connection as an example, website I'm very familiar with. If I click on women, then the page says category in it. So I know it's a category level page. The URL syntax is really, really useful here. So I can actually just take this as a unique identifier and tell the dashboard, please only show me, if I'm looking at this metric here, please only show me user level metrics for people who reached a page that contains /category/ in the URL as an example. And I should have said at the top of this video, all these metrics we're looking at here are user-based. So the metric is user-based. Everything here is users. So it's the amount of users who have reached the specific step. That's what we're trying to understand here. So in the case of French Connection, what I would do is I would create a filter for that step. So I'd go to Resource, Manage Filters. And this is what I'm going to spend most of our time in this training. And I would add a new filter. and I would name it, I think it was called category page. And I'd include page, scroll down to find page, that contains, and I believe the syntax was category, and then I'd go ahead and save that as a filter. That's what I'd do if we were dealing with French Connection, which is very helpful, which would be really helpful, but we're not. We're actually going to deal with a different website, which is the Google Merchandise Store website. So the reason I've chosen to use this website as an example for this training is for two reasons. One, it's a really good example for reasons that will become apparent soon in this training. But secondly, this data is available in the public domain. Helpfully, Google have given everyone access to Google Analytics data from the googlemerchandisestore.com. So that's why I'm at liberty to show you their data, because you can access it yourself, and it's really good for training purposes. So we are going to work with the googlemerchandisestore.com as our working example for this training video. So how do we populate the category page for that website? Well, actually, this website doesn't have a category level page. If I click on any of these menu items, I go straight to a product list page. So there's no such thing as a category page for this particular site. So what I would do is actually remove, as I've done in this example, remove the category step. I'm going to start my analysis at the product list page level. So what is a product list page for the Google Merchandise Store? Well, unfortunately, there's nothing useful here in the URL syntax that tells me that this is a product list page. I'm looking at a list of men's t-shirts, but I can't really see the word, there's nothing saying product list page or some such in the URL. So how do I tell the dashboard what is a product list page? Well, here's a useful hack. Jump into Google Analytics. Let me just close that up. Navigate to behavior, site content, and all pages. And what this will return is a report that shows all the pages in your website. You can see here, for example, lots of examples of product list pages in this report. But once again, there's nothing really unique or common to these the URL syntax of a product list page. Nothing really helpful that I can hang my hat off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to secondary dimension. I'm going to type in page title. And when I click on that, wait for it to load here. It's going to show me a second column called page title alongside the original column, which was page. And page title is really useful because I start to pull out something that's really unique about the product list page. In this case, Google Merchandise Store, Google Merchandise Store, Google Merchandise Store. Looks like all of the product list pages actually have the word Google Merchandise Store in the name. That's really, really helpful for me to know. So I can go back to my dashboard. I can actually go to resource, filters. I believe I've already done this here in this example. So I go to product list page. You can see the way I've created this filter is page title, not page. Remember, it's page title contains Google Merchandise Store. Fantastic. Let me just go back to this Google Analytics report, because what I noticed was the sign-in page, which is where people log in. It's not a product list page, but it actually also includes the word Google Merchandise Store in it. So I've actually gone in my filter and I've excluded the page that equals to sign-in, because I don't want to show users for that. That's not a product list page. So you can easily create exclude parameters as well as include parameters in your filters. Okay, so that's how I created the product list page filter. Now, I've created the filter, but I haven't applied it to my metric. So what I need to do is click on the metric here, scroll down to add filter. Here's the product list page filter that I created. So I'm click on that and see that number's just jumped down about 20,000. So now it's accurate. Boom, I'm done. I'm showing that 34,000 people in the last 30 days actually visited a product list page on the Google Merchandise Store. Excellent. So that's first step done. Product detail pages. Well, how can I determine what is a product detail page? Again, look at your website. What have you got? In the case of Google Merchandise Store, again, the URL syntax isn't hugely helpful for us. And that's why this website is such a good example for the purposes of this video. Here I am looking at a specific t-shirt. I'm on the product detail page. And I'm looking at the URL syntax, and there's nothing really useful for me to go off. You might find yourself in this situation on your own website, or you might not. If, again, looking at French Connection, which has got really helpful URL syntaxes, if I go to any product detail page on their website, you see the URL actually includes the word product in it. So it's super easy for me to create a filter just saying page contains product. But we're not working with the French Connection website. We're working with the Google Merchant Store website, and we're going to have to do something else here. So what I'd recommend, here's a really, really clever hack. If you don't, and by the way, this is only if you don't have robust Google Analytics set up, you haven't got content groups or anything like that set up. You need to hack this out of Google Analytics. How are you going to do that? Well, I would recommend actually leveraging page title once again. So let's find an example here. If I go back to the site, Google striped tee. Let me just grab that product name, and I haven't done this before, but hopefully it's going to work. If I just go to advanced, and I want to search for page title, and I want a page title that contains that product name that I just grabbed, and I hit apply. Is that going to work? Let's see. Yes. The page title inside Google Analytics is the name that you see at the top. Is the name that you see at the top of the page here. Why is that useful for us? Well, now that I know that inside of Google Analytics, every page title is essentially the name of the product. So if I go to the e-commerce report and I pull up a list of products, what I've done here, by the way, and if you don't, I've navigated the e-commerce reports. If you don't have e-commerce set up in your Google Analytics account, definitely get in touch because you're missing a trick. No way really to tell the website performance and how your website is powering your business. So do get in touch if you don't have e-commerce set up, but you probably do. And inside of that e-commerce reporting suite, you will see something like product performance. If you're using enhanced e-commerce, if you have classic e-commerce, it might be something else. But essentially, go to the product performance reports, pull up a list of products like this. Now, I'm not going, for the purposes of demonstration, I'm not going to list all 252. I'm just going to list 10. But here is a list of the top 10 products. And what you can do is export them. So go to export. In my case, I export as Google Sheets, and that will return the 10 products that were on the page. What you can do is create a filter named accordingly. So I've actually already copied it here. And you need to essentially tell the dashboard, here is a list of all the page titles for the product detail pages. If the page title matches any of these names, I want you to show me data. And the way that you write the syntax is like this. It's by writing something called a regular expression that is a little bit of code that tells the dashboard to return one of these page titles to you. So what have I done? All I've done is add a little hat, added a $sign at the end, and added a pipe in between each of the page title names. And the pipe means or. So essentially, I'm telling the dashboard if the metric matches the page title of this, or this, or this, or this, etc., then show me the data. So if I copy that, and it's much easier for just 10 products. Obviously, if you've got 300 products, this is a more onerous process, but I'm trying to show you some useful hacks that can help you get the data straight away. And then I go back to the dashboard, and I go to my filter section once again, and I go to product detail page. You can see that I've actually already copied that in. What I've done is said include page title matching the regular expression, and then I've copied in my code. It's a hat, the name of the page title, and then the or symbol, and so on and so forth. And once again, it finishes up with the $sign. That's how you write the regular expression. And then of course I need to apply it. I believe I already have for, yes, here you go. I've already applied the filter to this step. If I was to remove that filter, the number will jump back up to 54,000 people, which is all the website users. I don't want that. So I'm going to reapply the filter, click on product detail page, and the number will jump back down to 3,000. Now, this number is not completely accurate, is it? Because I've only taken the top 10 products as opposed to all products. But for the purpose of the demonstration, that's how it works. So as you can probably tell, I'm working with a really difficult website here. Your website might be a lot easier. You can just maybe pull the URL in order to tell you what is a product list page or what is a product detail page, and so on and so forth. What I've actually had to do is pull the page title for a product list page, and I've also had to pull the page title off of all the products for the product detail page. Well, what about the add to basket step? Well, that one's interesting, isn't it? Because when someone clicks on add to basket, which is this button here, or add to cart, no page is actually loaded. If I click on add to cart, I'm just going to add a quantity. And all I get is a little message that says I've added to cart, and that's it. So hopefully what's already been set up in your Google Analytics account is an event is fired to Google Analytics when someone clicks on this button. If that's not the case, then again, you should probably get in touch with me or another Google Analytics certified professional who can set it up for you. But in a lot of instances, you might find this data is already being sent to Google Analytics. You just need to know how to go and find it. And the way to do that is to go to the Google Analytics events report. That's where you may find your add to cart button actions. So the events report we're going to find by navigating back to Google Analytics. We are going to go to events and top events. And you'll almost definitely see event categories as enhanced e-commerce or e-commerce. You might have slightly different syntax, that's fine, but often that's the case. It says e-commerce in it. When I click in that, it shows me a few different actions. In this case, I can see someone's helpfully named the action add to cart. Yours might say add to basket, add to bag, who knows, but you'll often find that the case that someone's actually already added this tracking in there once upon a time. If they have, wonderful. You can leverage that data by copying add to cart, returning to your dashboard, going to resource, manage filters, creating an add to cart event. As you can see, I've already done that. And in this case, what I've actually done is said include the event action, right? So we're not dealing with a page and we're not dealing with a page title. We're actually dealing with event action here. So event action equals to add to cart. Just be careful here because it is case sensitive. So capital A and capital C in this example. And that's essentially the filter for add to cart for the Google Merchandise Store. And of course, I need to make sure that I apply a filter. So let's just double check. Has that been applied already? Yes, it has. So this number is accurate. So what have we got now? We've got user level metrics for the amount of people who reached the product list page, the product detail page, and the add to cart. You'll be happy to know for the rest of this website, it's really straightforward. So I don't really need to show you each of the rest of the steps because in the Google Merchandise Store, and it's probably the case for your website too, everything's URL based all the way through to the payment page. So for the basket page, for example, if I actually show you what the filter looks like, it's really simple. It's just include page that equals to basket. And that's showing everyone that reached the basket page. If I were to show you the sign-in filter, it's page equals to sign-in. Really, really simple, all the way through to conversion. So that's almost it, isn't it? We've got a funnel flow here that shows us the amount of users who reached each of these steps. And it didn't really take too long to set up. But there's additional data we can add for real insight. And that's to actually show how many people progressed from each step to the next. For example, it's useful to know that 6,500 people got to the basket page and 5,500 people got to the sign-in page. But what percentage is that? How many people dropped off or how many people progressed from that step to that step? That's really what you want to know, isn't it? Because that will tell you where you're losing the most amount of people. So in essence, what I'm talking about is having this data, right? So we can start to understand how many people really dropped off. So the way to add that data is to use a new feature inside this dashboard software called Blend Data. What you're going to do, and let's just do this for one example here, which is people who've got to the basket page and then proceeded to reach the sign-in page. What you're going to do is highlight both of these numbers. I've done that by clicking on both numbers and holding down the control key on my keyboard. It might be the command key if you're using Mac. Then I'm going to right click on these two data sources and I'm going to click Blend Data. Now what you can see is loading here is a new component that has both the basket user metric and the sign-in user metric as its data source. So let me explain that. If I go to metric here, users and users, the terminology isn't useful, right? But if you can see the 6665 is basket users, but if I clicked on this one here, it actually changes to 5619. That's the sign-in users. Okay. What I actually want is a calculated metric that shows me the amount, the percentage progression, i.e. sign-in users divided by basket users. That's what I want to show here. So how do I do that? Well, I'll jump into my data source, and that looks kind of scary, doesn't it? But if I scroll down here, what I want to actually do is relabel this one. So this is actually the basket filter. So I want to relabel this to say basket users because it's really confusing. It just says users. So I'm going to say basket users and hit enter. And likewise for this one, this is the other data source. It's the sign-in users. That's the filter that I applied, but it just says users. So I'm going to relabel this one to sign-in users. And then I'm going to hit save. And you can see by doing this relabel exercise, the reason I've done that is now I can see basket users and sign-in users. It doesn't just say users and users. And that enables me to then create a calculated field. So I'm going to call this field just drop off, and you can name it whatever you want, doesn't really matter. And I can type in sign-in users, which is the one that the label that I just created in the blend data section. And I'm going to go sign-in users divided by basket users. Again, I just created this label. And that's the calculated formula, isn't it? But I want to express it as a percentage. And I'm going to hit apply. Now this takes a couple of seconds to load up, so just give it a moment. Let's have a look at this number here. Boom, 84%. So that's showing me that the 5,500 people who progressed to this step from this step represent an 84% progression. There you go, you've done it. So you can do this for each of these individual steps. Here's one I made earlier. 13 or 14% progression from the PLP to the PDP. Remember, this PDP is not accurate because I only took the top 10 products, but that's fine. Product detail page to the add to cart button events, 70% progression, and so on and so forth. There's your funnel that's been populated. By the way, I haven't done this, but I highly recommend looking at your checkout level performance as an overall total. So for example, it's notable here that only 84 people bought out of 5,500 who actually got to the sign-in page. That seems very, very low. Or even the 1,200 who started entering their billing and shipping information at this page. That's a really, really low conversion rate. So if I was Google and I cared about this checkout performance, I would look to optimize these pages based on the drop-offs that I'm seeing here. So that's the kind of insight you get out of the funnel report. I hope it was useful to you. Hit me with any questions if you have any, or do get in touch about the conversion blueprint offer where I can help you with some of this setup or indeed taking some action based off the insights that you get from your e-commerce dashboard. I look forward to talking to you soon. Take care.